What's up, everybody? Demon back, and welcome to the third or whatever episode. What is this? Fifth episode of Godzilla-Thon? I've done multiple recordings of this freaking episode, as well as many other episodes. So don't be surprised if I'm a lot quicker and a lot more, to the point with this one, because I have done it before. So it's not like I'm gonna have to sit here and gather my thoughts on recording like I've done previously, because I've already given my thoughts on this movie before. But like I've talked about before on this channel, all those reviews are gone, sadly, and so I have to restart and re-record them all. Now, today we are going to be talking about my favorite movie of all times, King Kong vs. Godzilla. I freaking love this movie. It's just so much fun, and why wait? Just get into the plot synopsis like usual. But actually, first, the plot that I'm going to be getting into is the US cut of this movie. I'm not going to be going into the Japanese cut because I'm not very familiar with it. Now, the US cut, we start out with this reporter named Eric Carter. He is basically our character that we cut to every once in a while because he delivers plot. He helps move the plot forward because he tells us what's going on. It's a cool plot device that they use in this version. They don't have him in the Japanese cut, so I like the addition of him. I think, whoever does the acting for him is all right. And, those scenes, sure, they add exposition, so they're necessary, and I don't really have a problem with it. I don't think it takes away from anything too much. In fact, I think it just adds to the story because it helps make the movie feel like it's still moving. Now we have our main head of business dude named Tako, and he sends Haru and Sakurai to Faroe Island to look for this ancient island god. Now, Tako, or however his name is actually pronounced, is this Japanese. He's like a crazy eccentric guy. He runs this company called Pacific Pharmaceuticals. He is really, really jarring in this movie because this is still an early Showa movie for Godzilla, which means it's still a movie that takes itself seriously, and he is just this total goofy, campy character that comes out of nowhere and is just messing about the whole movie. That really is what he does, and most people have a problem with this. Although for me, because this is my first Godzilla film as well as my favorite, and I love everything about it, and I don't even have a problem with him. A lot of people really hate this guy. I think he's fun. I like seeing him on screen. I think he's funny later on with the coin flip, and so I do like this character. I don't have a problem with him like most people do. Now, before Haru and Sakurai get sent to Faroe Island, because that happens a little bit later, the idea of it's introduced here at the start. Before they get sent there, we are introduced to another subplot, which is the submarine Seahawk. Now, the submarine Seahawk is a U.S. submarine. It's a nuclear submarine that discovers an iceberg out in the north, and this iceberg is flashing different lights, and there's noise coming from it, radiation coming from it. They're all confused about what this is. They wind up crashing into it. They spew out some distress signals, and then the roof of that submarine gets set on fire. Well, this scene used to freak me out as a kid. I used to love this so much because it was the introduction of Godzilla. This was when he was starting to show up into the plot. You hear his roar. It's clearly him who sets the sub on fire. And that just used to terrify me. Like, what if I was in a submarine? I get stuck somewhere. Now Godzilla's going to kill me. I'm screwed. Although I've only been in a submarine once, so it's not like that's a common thing that's going to happen to me. I still used to be terrified of it, so I find that kind of funny. That's just a little insight on me as a kid. Now we are introduced to a new character, Fujita, and he has some invisible super wire. Now, this super wire is used for his company in some sort of way, shape, or form. I don't quite remember the excuse they make up for having it, but this wire does come back later in the plot, so just remember that. Now, Haru and Sakurai actually are now sent to Faroe Island. So the submarine Seahawk is completely gone, and a helicopter flies over. Now, there's two people in the helicopter. They look out, and they see Godzilla digging his way out of this iceberg. That's awesome. I mean, it is such a cool way for this movie to connect back to Godzilla Raids Again. Now, I know the English cuts of Godzilla Raids Again is Gigantus the Fire Monster, and the English cut of King Kong vs. Godzilla makes no reference to that movie. But if you're not an idiot, or if you're not an idiot and you're familiar with the other Godzilla films, or you watch the Japanese cut of this movie, it is explained that, yeah, that is Godzilla from Godzilla Raids Again. He was blown up into this ice castle pretty much. He was completely engulfed in ice, and now it just has melted to the point where he got out. So I think this scene's really cool with him digging through, and then we cut to Godzilla coming on land in one of the coolest destruction scenes from the movie. Probably my favorite Godzilla scene in the movie, maybe even more than the King Kong vs. Godzilla fight later on, just because I think it's really well done. I think it's awesome. Godzilla comes on land in the north of Japan, and it is like this icy community. You get tanks firing at him. It's a really cool tank assault. He raids this military base, essentially. There's a great shot of his tail swinging over a guard tower. The tail actually slaps the guard tower and knocks the top half off. I think this whole scene is absolutely awesome. I don't know why. I really, really like it because Godzilla's awesome. That's the simplest way to put it. Godzilla's awesome, and this helps show off how cool he is. This is one of the first major assaults we see Godzilla ever do. Other than the 54 movie, he didn't really have that major of an assault in Godzilla Raids Again. So this is one of our first big tank battles that we have with Godzilla, and I think it was really well done. Special effects are pretty good. You know, the tanks look really fake, but you can't, like, discredit them for that. This was their first attempt in color at that, so I don't know. I think this scene's really good. Godzilla sets everything on fire with his atomic breath, and then we cut to Faro Island, where our crew, Haru, Sakurai, and some others are actually, they are first. People are hostile towards them on Faro Island. The natives are hostile towards them, but they soon open up to them, and it's a big, happy, like, welcome to our island kind of thing after they show them this music box that plays some sort of crazy Japanese song, and then, you know, our main characters, Haru and Sakurai, wind up giving a whole bunch of people, including some little kids, cigarettes, so that's weird. But, you know, it's 1962. We're not going to be too hard on them. They didn't know about smoking back then. They didn't know that, yeah, they probably just gave that little kid cancer. Now we are reintroduced to the Fujita subplot, where his plane reportedly crashes, the plane that he was supposed to take for some sort of business meeting, and his girlfriend, Haru's sister, actually winds up heading out to Hokkaido to find him because she wants to know if he's one of the survivors of the plane crash or if he did indeed die. Now we cut to Eric Carter and some other news reporters reporting on "Do not go to Hokkaido. Godzilla is headed there right now." And I really like this Godzilla scene coming up. Back on Faro Island, Haru is attacked by some sort of giant lizard, and he throws it down before he shoots it. Now, this used to bother me so much as a little kid, and I'm not quite sure why. It's just I used to really like reptiles as a little kid, so seeing one of the characters in my favorite movie swing and throw a reptile and then shoot it used to really make me mad. I had a lizard as a kid, so it's just kind of funny. This comedy scene, this comedical scene used to make me all mad at the movie when I saw it. And actually, I think I made a mistake earlier when I said it was Haru's sister. It's actually Sakurai's sister who is the one who goes out looking for Fujita. So just know that. I messed up. Just know that. Skito, this little native kid, goes out looking for berry juice, red berry juice, to help with Haru's corns because his corns hurt after their big adventures in the mountains. Now, he claims his corns hurt because they always hurt when a giant monster's near around. So, you know, I didn't understand that as a kid. I still don't quite get it. It's weird. It's a good enough reason for this little kid to go out looking for berry juice because as he's out looking for berry juice, all of a sudden a giant octopus attacks out of nowhere, and this scene is incredible. So the giant octopus attacks this little hut. Really great. You see the hut just completely get destroyed. Now, the little kid, Skito, and his mom actually make it out of the... They make it out. They don't die in the hut. They don't get the berry juice, though. Now, all the natives and Sakurai come, and they start attacking this octopus, throwing torches at it, shooting it, firing things at it, throwing spears at it. Really great. Now, the special effects on this scene are especially commendable because of how it was done. Now, how it was done is really cool. It was a real octopus. It was a real octopus that they laid down on this miniature. It went to town on the thing, on this little hut. Now then they filmed it and they projected it, and they had these actors throwing, like, you know, spears at the octopus and stuff at this projection. Really cool stuff. So now this octopus scene was so influential that Toho recreated it in multiple movies to come, such as Frankenstein Conquers the World, There was some scenes in War of the Gargantuas that were very reminiscent of this. As the octopus is destroying things, things look grim for our characters. They're not really able to fight this giant octopus up until King Kong shows up in a super grand appearance. I mean, I've been saying it the whole time. I love this. I find this really fun. You know, this is my favorite movie ever, so you got to give me this review to just gush all over this movie. So King Kong comes out pounding his chest behind this mountain. He walks out, destroys this really flimsy gate. That's one of the things that I always question was how is that like stick gate ever supposed to keep Kong out of the village? It wasn't. It just that was always weird to me. But Kong comes, he crumples it up, he chucks it at this octopus, he goes over there, he beats up the octopus. Really cool. Kong looks interesting. There's a lot, most people hate him. Most people hate him. I only hate the close-up shots of like the animatronic puppet face. I don't know if it's an animatronic. It might just be a straight-up puppet, but it looks terrible. Like it's really off-putting. It doesn't look like the actual suit. I think the suit looks fine. I don't have a problem with it. The eyes are blacked out and it looks all menacing and awesome. But most people hate this. Like I keep saying, don't have a problem with it. Now, what is cool, though, is that King Kong fights this octopus, wins, gets the thing to retreat after picking it up. It, like, latches onto his face. He hucks it at the ground. It runs away. He drinks some berry juice, which knocks him out. This is cool because it is our real good reference to the 33 movie, and I really like that. I like the way that this movie pays so much homage to the original King Kong movie, especially because this is Kong's third movie ever, including Son of Kong. Now, this is also his first colored appearance, as well as Godzilla's first colored appearance, you know, so there's some cool background there. But King Kong in this movie, this whole Faroe Islands subplot really is a lot like the 33 movie if you think about it. You got people going to this mysterious island in search of something. They hear word of this island god, you know, they have contact with it. It fights giant monsters. Now it gets knocked out by one way or another. In 33, they threw some gas bombs at Kong. In this one, he drinks some red berry juice and passes out. Really cool stuff here, and then as well as taking Kong back to Tokyo, which happens a little later, that's also just like this. So King Kong gets knocked out. We have a weird musical number. I think the song is kind of catchy. I don't know about you guys. I think it's kind of catchy, one of the more catchy songs of the movie, because although the Japanese music is really good, especially Godzilla's theme is a solid Godzilla theme, and I really appreciate the reuse of it and the reworking of it for Shin Godzilla, which came out in 2016. I do really like the theme for Godzilla in this movie. The music in the English cut mostly cuts out Ifukube's music due to how out of place it was. Now, I don't speak from 100% experience here, but from what I have heard, the music in the Japanese cut for this movie is really off-putting, doesn't really fit where it goes, like you get music here and there. This is one of the only songs retained from the Japanese cut, this weird musical number that they sing, that the natives sing to Kong. So the English cut actually inserts a ton of old stock music from Universal, such as the Creature from the Black Lagoon theme. So the music in the English cut is very different than the Japanese cut. I like the fact that they retain this musical number just because I think the song is catchy, and I think all of Ifukube's music is good in general, so hearing any of it slip into the English cut is a welcome addition. Now Kong is taken on a raft to Tokyo, to Japan. He is asleep on this raft. Don't know how they got him on it. Don't know where the raft came from. They don't really answer this stuff. You're not supposed to question it. It's a fun, silly movie, although it is an early Showa film, so it doesn't necessarily fit the genre or the time period, but it is honestly just a fun, silly movie. Don't question it too much and you'll enjoy it. That is my biggest word of advice. So Kong wakes up on this massive raft. He's tied down. They got dynamite all over him just in case he tries to fight his way out. Taco actually winds up joining on to the voyage. He gets a heli drop and lands on the ship, and he's all proud that, oh, thank you guys for rescuing and bringing me Kong. This will help great for Pacific Pharmaceuticals. One thing I don't think I mentioned on earlier, the reason they're going to get Kong is because it's for their ad campaign for Pacific Pharmaceuticals. Once again, as a kid, I had no idea, why is this important? I don't get it. Now I'm old enough to realize that the allegory of this movie, although it is weak allegory, is there to point out the flaws in marketing and capitalizing on things and all this stuff. So uh, that is that is the purpose of it. It is an exaggerated. It's almost like a commentary, like a parody of how absurd marketing campaigns and stuff like that are. It's weird for a Godzilla movie. It doesn't necessarily work, but this movie is just it's awesome. There's nothing about it. I just love this movie. So Kong wakes up on this raft. Taco joins on. He's all proud. He's like, Kong's awesome. Thank you guys for getting him for me. This is going to help Pacific Pharmaceuticals. And then another ship kind of stops them and boards them, and it is. I think it's the Coast Guard, and they basically explain, like, yo, you can't take Kong to Tokyo. We already got Godzilla to deal with. You got to send this thing back. It is going to cause trouble. Now, that is a problem because Taco doesn't want to give up Kong. And so what actually happens is Kong gets too riled up, so they have to blow him up. They have to blow up the TNT. Now they push the switch. Taco accidentally pushes the switch. Doesn't work, so they fire guns. They hit the TNT. Everything explodes. Raft explodes, and bam, Kong is freed. None of the explosives do any damage to him, showing how powerful this Kong is, how resilient he is, like how much he can take. Somehow he swims his way all the way back to Tokyo following that boat. You know, you'd think the Coast Guard would be like, yo, turn yourself around. This gorilla's clearly following you, but whatever, don't question it. So Fumiko, who is Sakurai and Sakurai's brother or sister, and Fujita's girlfriend, she boards a train and is taking the train to go meet up with Fujita to see if he is still alive. Fujita actually goes back to her apartment and finds out she went to find him in Hokkaido. Now he knows Godzilla's headed there, so he goes in Jeep to try and rescue her from Godzilla, who meets up with Fumiko. He actually, heads straight for the train that she's on. I think this is awesome. I mean, the special effects here are pretty cool. This train smashes into his foot, gets derailed. Now Godzilla's there and everyone's running away. They're all freaked out. Everyone's terrified. This giant monster's coming for them. There is some continuity errors here that happen with this train scene because it is explained that Godzilla is attracted to light and technology. Now, that actually does match up really well with Godzilla Raids Again, where he was attracted to fire and light. But this movie also explains that Godzilla doesn't like electricity, which was clearly not the case in the 54 movie when he powered straight through those high tension wires, no problem. This movie, he is affected by electricity and it hurts him right here. It comes into play later in the movie. Godzilla, attacks this train. Everyone's running away. Everyone's freaking out. Fumiko's left behind. She nearly dies. Now Fujita gets there just in time to help her out, saves her, and then they are on their merry way. Godzilla is on his way to somewhere. It's not 100% specified at this point. They just say that him and Kong are on a beeline towards each other. Now we meet General Shinzo, who is a really awesome character in the Godzilla movies. I don't think he's reoccurring. For whatever reason, I thought he was, but after watching some of the other ones again for Godzilla-Thon in the upcoming weeks, I realized that this character doesn't actually show up again, which just means that I think this one-time character is cool enough to write down his name, so, that's important. He's not a main character, doesn't really do a ton for the plot, but he's just a straight down-to-business, awesome, general-type character, really cool, gets things done, lays out a trap for Godzilla that Godzilla falls for, by the way. So the trap is high tension wires are everywhere. They lead Godzilla away from this area. He's actually following fire and light to get there. So he gets to this little pit where he steps on. They dug a big hole and then laid some big leaves over it, pretty much. Essentially what happened. They dug a big pit and then laid something over it so that he wouldn't realize it was a big pit. He actually steps on it, gets collapsed into it, and there you go, Godzilla's dead. I'm just kidding. Godzilla rises up from the ground in one of the coolest Godzilla reveals in the early Showa films. I mean, he always has cool reveals. I think his reveal in 54 was great. When he comes over that mountain, his reveal in Mothra vs. Godzilla is really cool, but then I don't think he really has any great reveals up until Terror of Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Some later on down the road he has really cool reveals, but this is one of the coolest ones straight off the bat in Godzilla movies, where you see his head just slowly rising above this barrier that they knocked him down into. He roars, everyone freaks out. And now Godzilla's back on his way. The high tension wires do hurt him in this scene, so I'm a bit confused as to, once again, the continuity here, because Ishiro Honda directed this film as well as the 54 film. So you'd think he'd be like, yeah, you know what? That was a major plot point in the 54 movies that Godzilla, just didn't care. And now we're totally stepping on our own continuity here. So, but I don't think that was really on their minds. Anyways, the high tension wire thing, it does come back into play later. So, they had to make Godzilla weak and vulnerable to something. That way they could make Kong, better at something than Godzilla. It's a weird thing just to get Kong more powerful than Godzilla in one instance, and it works later on, but at this point it is just weird that the high tension wires would hurt him. Now, I actually think I missed a plot point here. See, when I did these notes, I did them months ago when I originally did this recording, so the movie was fresher on my mind then, and I was able to just go from memory pretty much there. Now I'm having to rely on my notes because I haven't watched the movie in like a week or so. I did miss a part. King Kong and Godzilla have one minor battle earlier in the movie where Kong like runs up on Godzilla and Godzilla's on this hill. This is right after Kong gets to Japan. Runs up on Godzilla. Godzilla's standing up on this hill, just firing the atomic breath at him and kicking rocks at Kong. Kong's like freaks out, gets burnt on his chest, and then retreats. Now, this is cool. It just shows how, like, awesome Godzilla is. They compare it to, like a man fighting a flamethrower. Of course, the flamethrower is going to win. This is also that scene I talked about earlier where we get Taco doing that little coin flip for heads Kong wins, and then it's tails, and he's all bummed. Now, that's a cool fight here, but that doesn't really matter once you see the end of the film, because that is the coolest fight in Godzilla history. It's awesome. So, back into the current point of the story, Kong grabs Fumiko, and it's another 33 reference where he knocks down a train. He gets the girl, so recreating the 33 scene when Kong gets that train, and then this whole subplot with this girl is mirroring Ann's plot in the original King Kong. So Kong grabs this girl and is on his way with her because he's Kong, he's in love with her. He actually winds up going on a little rampage through Tokyo, and he climbs the Capitol building. Now, the berry juice is weaponized in a really cool way. They put it into a gas form and load it into missile heads, fire off the missiles above King Kong's head. Now the berry juice gas, falls on him. The vapors put him to sleep. The girl's put to sleep. Kong falls over. Fumiko is rescued. The only problem with this scene is Fumiko seems to grow in size, like a ridiculous amount. Even as a little kid, I noticed this, but as a little kid, I didn't question it because, when you're a little kid, you just see what's on screen. You don't really question it. But now, I appreciate the reference, the 33 thing going on here, but they did have to scale up Fumiko to make it look like she was sitting in Kong's hand. This is a problem because now she grows from being like 5 feet, which is what she is, and now all of a sudden King Kong, who's Godzilla sized, picks her up, and all of a sudden she's got to be like 30 to 50 feet in order to fit in his hand that way. It doesn't make sense. It's really clunky, but the movie doesn't address it, so it's not like they draw tons of attention to that fact. It is noticeable if you watch it, though. Now, Kong is put to sleep. She is saved. So the plan worked. They put some of Fujita's super wire from earlier. Told you it would come back. They put some of that. They string Kong up to it. Use a couple weather balloons to carry Kong to Mount Fuji where Godzilla is doing something. He's just kind of walking up Mount Fuji on his own, minding his own business. Now they realize the only way for King Kong and Godzilla to die is if they kill each other. So naturally, they drop Kong right onto Mount Fuji. He slides straight down into Godzilla, knocking Godzilla over, gets up, and then he's like, oh, what the hell? And he books it. He takes off, goes up the mountain, and hides away in this little cavern. Godzilla heads up the mountain. Really, really awesome. Godzilla heads up the mountain looking for Kong. Kong's hiding underneath this little thing. Kong strikes first, goes for Godzilla, grabs his tail, gets thrown across the floor. It's awesome. I mean, this whole battle scene is so cool. I used to try and reenact this whole battle scene with Kong on my own as like a weird little kid. There was like a big like a sand pile outside of an apartment that I used to live in. And I used to go play around in that sand pile as if I was King Kong, and I would always act like I was attacking Godzilla. I don't know why I'd play as Kong personally. Godzilla's way cooler, and beats Kong through most of the fight. But yeah, whatever. Maybe it was just easier for me to play as Kong because he's more like a human. Uh, so Kong attacks Godzilla, gets the crap kicked out of him. Godzilla's kicking rocks at him, throwing stuff at him with his tail. Every time Kong gets up, Godzilla will knock him straight down. Godzilla is just a force to be reckoned with, and Kong is getting it handed to him the whole time. So now the fight is being taken from Mount Fuji closer to a city. As they are working their way there, Kong is smacked in the face after he does a drop kick. He tries to drop kick Godzilla, or Godzilla drop kicks him. I don't quite remember who drop kicks who. It might be Godzilla drop kicks Kong, and Kong goes rolling down a mountain, smashes his face straight into this rock. He passes out. He tries to get back up. Godzilla whacks him with his tail, knocks him straight down. Kong is out of the fight. So Godzilla, he wins at this point up until a lightning storm comes out of nowhere for plot convenience and starts striking Kong with lightning. Earlier in the movie it was explained that lightning and electricity actually powers Kong, makes him more powerful. If anyone was wondering why this is the case, that's because this movie was originally written as a King Kong movie that was worked into a Godzilla movie that was worked into Godzilla vs. Frankenstein that was worked into King Kong vs. Godzilla. Frankenstein was worked into Frankenstein Conquers the World, which was a prequel, or not necessarily a prequel because it did come first, but it was the movie that came before War of the Gargantuas, which was its direct sequel, where at the same time the Kong idea from original was still used as King Kong Escapes. So this movie really did help form like 5 other movies that are pretty solid entries in the Showa series of Japanese and Toho films. So anyways, Kong is woken back up by the lightning. Now he has lightning punches and he goes after Godzilla. He beats the crap out of Godzilla. Every time he grabs him, like lightning bolts shoot up Godzilla wherever he grabs him, like electricity sparking everywhere. This is because Godzilla is vulnerable to electricity in this movie. Once again, continuity doesn't make sense here, but I'm willing to excuse it on the grounds of it makes it an even match. Now, Kong and Godzilla duke it out. They work their way into a city. Sadly, we don't get really any cool city fights where they like destroy a city fighting each other, but they do wind up at this pagoda where each of them stand on one side of the pagoda and just go at it, like tearing the thing apart. This is my favorite scene in the movie, honestly. I love this. It's so cool. When Godzilla's ripping through the thing, Kong's ripping through the thing, they're trying to get to each other, they're trying to beat each other, they're trying to kill each other. Godzilla's firing the atomic breath off, Kong's just coming at him. Then they eventually destroy the thing, Kong tackles Godzilla into the ocean, and the movie pretty much ends. I love this King Kong vs. Godzilla fight. Like I said earlier, it is my favorite fight in Godzilla history. It is King Kong vs. Godzilla, my 2 favorite things in cinema history fighting each other. It is so epic. I love it. Words cannot express. Like, a lot of people hyped up that Shin Godzilla, atomic breath reveal, which granted was an amazing scene, was the most visually stunning scene in Godzilla. It was the most visually stunning thing in a Godzilla movie to date, but this scene it takes the cake for like cool factor, wow factor, and just fun for me. So I love it. Kong and Godzilla, they fight each other to the point where they are thrown into this ocean together. Now, this is odd because Godzilla doesn't come up out of the water. Kong does. Kong comes up out of the water after an earthquake that happens. He swims away, presumably to Faroe Island, and we never see him again. Now, we do see Kong in a follow-up movie, King Kong Escapes, although that one doesn't ever make reference to this movie, so we can assume that that is a different King Kong. It is also, he's a different size, looks different, acts pretty different, so, presumably these are 2 different unrelated King Kongs within this Showa Godzilla universe. Godzilla, on the one hand, doesn't come up out of the water. He swims away. We can only assume he swims away and goes and, stays safe underwater up until he's washed on shore in the next movie. Now, Godzilla, like I said, we don't see him. Kong is actually the official victor of this fight. It has been confirmed by Toho Studios. King Kong won this fight only because he was a more popular character at the time in Japan. Now, Godzilla, yeah, he is Japanese character. He's a Japanese monster. Keep in mind, though, this was only his third film. The first one was extremely successful. The second one was pretty good in terms of how well it was received. Although everyone just thought it did not compare to the original, and so Godzilla went on hiatus up until now. Whereas Kong, on the other hand, in '33 was released. Super successful movie, got a sequel, then was re-released in the 50s, I believe, and was even more successful, and people just loved Kong. They couldn't get enough of him. So Kong was the much more popular character at the time in Japan. Pretty much in the world, he was more popular. So Kong won the fight to basically make people happy. Now, in the rematch 2020 movie, who do I think will win? Godzilla. I mean, think about it. Kong from Skull Island is going to guaranteed be smaller than Godzilla. Godzilla's just a massive lumbering force in the 2014 movie. He's going to win. Keep in mind, though, guys, I am recording this. This will even be posted before Skull Island comes out, so who's really to say? I just personally think Godzilla's going to win. He's also more popular in the pop culture world nowadays, so there's that, which is the main factor for who won this movie. And I'm just so hyped that there's going to be another King Kong vs. Godzilla. I know this doesn't have to do with the original, and I'm getting off topic here, but not really. It's a remake of this movie, so it still counts as fair ground. I can't wait. This is just my favorite movie in the world. I mean, if you couldn't tell, I don't know. Everything about it works for me. The music is awesome, even if it is stock music. The Ifukube music is really great with or without context. King Kong vs. Godzilla special effects are good. Godzilla's awesome in the movie. Characterization of Kong is pretty spot on. The human characters, aren't too distracting from the monster stuff to the point where they get annoying like they do in some later Godzilla films. Godzilla, the whole thing works for me, and I absolutely love this movie. My voice just kind of quit on me right here for no reason. I just love this movie. I do want to lay this to bed, though. In the Japanese cut, there is no double ending. A lot of people have talked about there being a double ending where Godzilla wins in the Japanese cut. Don't believe it. It's not true. I, in fact, have a book that I got for Christmas. It was bought from a library that states specifically there is a double ending. Japanese cut, Godzilla wins. English cut, Kong wins. That's not true at all. Don't believe that. That's been proven false tons of times by now. The internet's around, guys. If you didn't know that by now, then I'm surprised you even heard the rumors in the first place. So overall, what would I give this movie? I would give this movie a 10 out of 10. I freaking love this movie. Or if I do my ratings out of 5 on Godzilla-Thon, I can't quite remember. It doesn't really matter. It's a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. It's a perfect score. Everything about this movie lands for me. I think it's funny. I think it's entertaining. I think it's lighthearted enough to the point where I don't get bored for a single second. The pacing's great. The music's awesome. Godzilla, King Kong fighting each other. What's not to love? Honestly, this is just my definition of the perfect, goofy, fun movie. And like I've said before, it's not the best Godzilla movie ever. No. The original 54 movie is the best movie ever. This movie is my favorite. There is a difference. I make the distinction in my own mind. I don't know if you guys do, but personally for me, I prefer this movie. I will watch this one before I'll watch any other movie in the world, pretty much. Unless it's like a new movie and I want to see it, because new things are always cool to see for the first time. For the most part, this movie is amazing, and what do you guys think about it? So, welcome back to Godzilla-Thon. I know this was kind of unorganized, a little bit. I try to be more like upbeat and entertaining this video than I have been in the past, where I just kind of crapped on Godzilla raids again for an hour, but that does come with the fact that I absolutely love this movie, and the fact that I have done these reviews before, so it's kind of boring if I just sit here and give you a straight-up plot synopsis followed up with, yeah, I think that was done well. The allegory is nice and developed here. It's more entertaining for me to re-record if I'm a lot more upbeat with it. So, what do you guys think about this movie? Do you guys love it as much as me? Do you hate it like most people on Earth do? Tell me below, and see you guys next week for my review of the 1964 film Mothra vs. Godzilla. This one is also just a fantastic film in the Showa series. one of the best, maybe even the third best of the Showa series. It is an amazing film. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thank you all for watching. D-Man out.